Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial. So I very recently made this scene here that I posted on Instagram, and I'm not going to be doing a tutorial in this complete setup, but I will be covering the animation and stuff. So we're going to be making this scene here, so I'm going to be covering the basic principle of how I did this, and then you guys can totally go ahead, add some lights and some materials. But this, what you see here, is what we're going to be making today. It's pretty easy, but I wouldn't recommend it for an absolute Blender beginner. But for those of you who are kind of intermediate and kind of already know the basics, you should be able to follow this along. I will be making this finished project file, the original one I made, available to my Patreons. But those of you guys who are not on Patreon, if you want this scene file, you can buy it for $2 on Gumroad, and there's going to be a link to that in the description below. So without wasting any more time, let's do this tutorial. Okay, so go ahead and open up a new scene in Blender. So what I'm going to do here is just hit A to select everything, and then X and delete. We're going to go Shift A, we're going to go to Mesh Options, we're going to add in a cylinder, and we're going to come down here to the Add Cylinder settings, go to the vertex count here, and just type in 3. So now the cylinder only has 3 points here. Then what we're going to do is tab into Edit Mode, and with all these vertices selected, we're going to go S, Z, 0.25, and hit Enter. So it's a quarter of its original height. We're going to go to our face select this face at the top, go X and delete the face, and grab this face in the bottom and go X and delete that face. So what we have here is this item right here, this triangle. And then what we're going to do is go Shift D to duplicate this guy, and then we're going to hit M, and we're going to move it to a new collection, and we're going to call this Cutter, and hit Enter, and go OK. And let's come up here to our scene collection and just disable that for now, because we don't need that in this scene. We're going to use that later. So what we need to do now is, with this guy selected, is go to our modifiers. We're going to add in a a solidify modifier. What we want to do is come here to the thickness and just give it a tiny amount of thickness. You don't want to make it too thick. So 0.02, let's just type in 0.02. I think that's a good number. And let's just tab out of edit mode. Well, I was out of edit mode. So what we're going to do is go Shift A, we're going to add in a plane, tab into edit mode, we're going to go RY90 and hit Enter. Then we're going to go S and just scale this plane down quite a bit, something like that. And then we're going to go EX and extrude it out a little bit, go to our face select this bottom face, and then we're going to go GZ and bring this guy down quite a bit. Doesn't really matter, just as long as it's quite long like that. Go to your top view, top orthographic, and go G, and then we're going to move this guy over here in the bottom left corner, and then R to rotate it, and just rotate it and place it here. And then go Shift D X and move one over here, so you can see what I'm doing here. And we can grab both of them and just go G, Z, and just make sure they're just sitting at the bottom here. And then grab one of them, go to top view again, and then go Shift D, and just move this guy over here. You can go in your wireframe if it helps you. And then come over here to the end, go R to rotate it, and just rotate it up with this, and place it here. So we should have something that looks like this. Very simple, not difficult to do at all. And let's quickly set up a camera. So I'm going to come into my view here, just something like this. Okay. And then I'm going to go Shift A, I'm going to add in a camera. Hit 0 to go to my camera view, and then hit G, hit my middle mouse wheel, pull back to zoom out in the camera. And with a view like this, I'm going to go to my camera settings. I'm going to make the focal length 85 and hit Enter. Going to go to my output settings and make the Y value here 1920 as well. And since both of these X and Y values are set to 1920, that's going to give us a square aspect ratio. So with this camera view here, what we're going to do is go Shift A, we're going to add in a mesh, and this is going to be a cube this time. We're going to tab into edit mode, and this can be as thick as you want it to be, but I'm just going to go S, Z, and just scale it down till it's something like this, almost like a thick piece of pre-cut cheese or something like that. And then what we're going to do is tab out of edit mode and then go G, Y, and just move this guy so it's roughly in the middle of this triangle here, as long as none of these edges are going over here. So it's just got a little bit of thickness on the edges here, that'll be fine. And then with that done, what we can do is come over here and enable this cutter object again. And what we can do is just go to your wireframe and make sure you select that cutter object. So this object we duplicated earlier, tab into edit mode and go to edge select and just select these top edges and go F. Select the bottom edges and just hit F to make this a whole triangle. And then what we're going to do is grab this guy again. And all we need to do is come in here and go Control R and roll our middle mouse wheel to add in some loops. And then over here, Control R and roll our middle mouse wheel just to add in some loops. Just enough so we can deform this a little bit later. And then Control R and add in one loop over here. Tab out of edit mode, go to your modifiers. We're going to add in a bevel modifier. Make the angle limit method angle. And then come up here and decrease the offset to make it smaller, and then increase the segment count to 4. And then apply the bevel. Go to Object, enable Shade Smooth. Then what we're going to do is make sure we got that cutter object selected, this box here, and just come here to your object, click on here, come up here and just name it cutter and hit enter. And then if we grab this guy here, we go to our modifier panel, add, and we're going to add in a boolean. So now if we come over here, click on here and get that cutter object, we're going to see it is cutting this guy, is cutting a triangle in here. But what we need to do is go Shift D and right click to let go, and then hit M and create a new collection and call this guy second, because it's the second thing we're going to cut, and just go OK and just hide that second one. So let's just grab this original guy, and what we're going to do is apply this boolean. And then what we're going to do is, with this guy still selected, we're going to go H to hide it, and then come down here and click on this second tab again to bring this guy back. And this guy still has that modifier applied, but this time we're going to come over here and make it different. Not difference, intersect. And then we're going to go apply. So let's go Alt H just to unhide that other guy. So what we're going to have here, if we get, just hide the cutter layer here. So what we have here is a triangle in the middle and this piece here. But to clean up this funky shading, come over here and give it a, where is it? An edge split. So give it an edge split, grab this guy in the middle, and also give that guy an edge split modifier. And if we grab both of them and go G, Z, and move them up, and you're going to see now that you can kind of see this line here, but when it is rendered, you will not see that. It should be fine. So let's grab both of these, go into your camera view, and go G, Z, and move them up till they're no longer in your camera view, like that. Okay, and what's going to happen, we're eventually going to go and just animate this guy falling here and then falling down and going out of our camera view, and that'll be loopable. So just place it right on top of here, and let's get into our animation. Okay, so let's do a little bit of quick animation. So with both of these guys selected, make sure they're both selected, and we're going to make sure we are on frame 1. So come over here in your timeline, make sure you drag the slider to frame 1, or over here just manually type in 1. And we're going to go into our camera view, and we're going to go I to insert a location key. So hit I on your keypad and then insert a location key. So we can see here is a keyframe inserted. We're going to come over to frame 20, and on frame 20 we're going to go G, Z, bring this guy down just so it's sitting just underneath the lip of this cutter over here. We're going to go I and insert a location key. So what we're going to get is this fall. And then what we're going to do is come over to, with both of them still selected, come over to frame 40. And on frame 40, we're going to go G, Z, and bring it down to here. Go I, insert a location. And let's have a look at that. So it's going to fall and just kind of come to a little bit of a sliding stop like that. And then we're going to go to frame 90. And on frame 90, if we go into our camera view, we can go G, Z, and slide this down till we can't see it in our camera view, and then we're going to go I and insert a location. So let's have a look at that. It's like that, and then it falls. So it doesn't just, it's not just one continuous falling motion. Because of friction, there's a little bit of friction as it's cutting through, and then it suddenly gives and continues falling. But to make things a bit more interesting, what we want to do is offset the falling of this guy over here. So what we need to do is grab the little triangle piece in the middle, and on frame 40, go back to frame 40, we want to go G, Z, and bring this guy down even more to about here, and then go I and insert a location key. So let's have a look at that. Okay, and at the moment it's a little bit messed up over here, but what we're going to do is just with both of them selected, select all of these keyframes and go T and make it linear. So now if you go into your camera view, so just to repeat, select all of them with both of these selected, hit T on your number pad and make the interpolation linear. And that should fix that problem. And there it slides. So once again, just have a look at it. It falls, there's a little bit of a pause, and it just slides. And we can grab this guy over here, and I feel like we might be able to come to frame 40 with that outer piece selected and also make it a little bit more. So I'm going to just grab that keyframe here on 40 and drag it to 50 and have a look at that. And there it goes. And what I think I need to do is come to frame 90, and with that big piece still selected, I might grab this keyframe on frame 90, and with this big outer piece selected, I'm going to go G and just drag it to frame 110. So it's a little bit slower, so let's have a look at that. And there it goes. Okay, and I'm just playing it over and over just till it looks right. Okay, I think that looks good. So what I'm going to do to make it a little bit more realistic is grab this big outer piece, go to my, go to frame 1, and on frame 1 I'm going to go to my keyframe settings here and hit the little shape key, plus, and then hit it one more time to create a shape key, and then increase this value to 1. Tab into edit mode, and what I'm going to do is go to vertice select. I'm going to enable proportional editing, and then what I'm going to do is grab these vertices on the outside. So grab a vertice on the corner here, and then grab a vertice holding in shift here, one on this corner, and then one on this corner. And then you're going to go G, Z, and just move these up a little bit, like that. And then A to select all of them, and then G, Z, and just bring it down a little bit. So if we mess around with this value slider, this is what we're going to see. So what I want to do is come over here in a timeline till this guy, just make this value 0 over here, till this guy is touching over here. And we want to come to about here, just so before it touches the bottom lip here, and then we want to come to this value and hit 0, with a value of 0 here, we want to hover over it and hit I. That's going to insert a keyframe on this value, and then we're going to come over here to about frame 70, and on frame 70 we're going to drag this value all the way up to 1, and then hit I to insert a keyframe. So let's have a look at that. So it's going to go like that, and then fold in like that. Now there are different ways you can do this. If that doesn't look quite right, what you can do is just tab into edit mode, and select these vertices in here. So I'm just loop selecting them, holding Shift and Alt, and then you can go G, Z, and you can move them up. So that might feel a little bit more natural, and you can grab these corners here and just drag them down a bit. So it's all up to you, like what makes sense to you, but just go ahead, play around with the shape key. You can do it and then go back to frame 0 and play it again, and just have a look at that sag. So maybe on frame 70 it's a little bit too intense, so I might bring the value down. Just a little bit of a sag in it, and then hit I, just so it doesn't look, it just make it look a little bit non-rigid. And you can grab this guy in the middle, this triangle, go to frame 1, tab into edit, or give it a shape key first, hit the plus, and then hit it again to create a shape key, drag the value to 1, tab into edit mode, and then grab a vertice here in the middle, and then go G, and then Z, and just drag it down like that. And then what we're going to do is come over to frame 20 over here. And frame 20, we're going to drag this value down to 0 and hit I. And we're going to drag the slider to frame 70. And frame 70, we're going to drag it all the way up to 1 and hit I, hovering over here. So we're going to see this. Like that. So once again, let's have a look at that. Falls and it kind of sags. And once again, anytime you can come in here and mess around with the shape key till you get something like a kind of a deformation that looks right. So this is totally up to you. The more extreme you make this, the more jelly-like this is going to look, but you don't want to overdo it, so just be careful with that. So let's have a look at that. Sags. Yeah, and you could probably come over here to this frame 21, and over here hit I to insert a keyframe, and then come up a little bit, and then start dragging the slider just to make the kind of folding of it start a little bit earlier, and then hit I if you want to add that little detail, but just having a look at it. And you can mess around with this animation as much as you want, but I'm quite happy with this. So it slides, And let's come to frame 120. And I think that's as long as this should be. So let's come to our end value here and make it frame 120. And let's see how loopable that looks. So it runs, goes down, and then it repeats again. And you can duplicate this and kind of offset the keyframes here if you want to make another one falling right after it. But this is the general gist of how I did things. And like I said, you can spend as much time as you want with the deformation of the shape key here to make it kind of the sag look the way you want it to do. But yeah, this is just how I did that scene, and the rest is just stuff you've seen before, lighting, basic materials, nothing complicated. So I hope you guys liked this tutorial. I will be making the scene you saw earlier available to my Patreons. So go ahead and check that out if you're on Patreon. Or if you don't want to do that, you can also get it on Gumroad for $2. That'll also be in the description below. See you guys later, and be safe.